Today, we have another very special guest, a person, I guess the best way to present him, Harish Bhai, if you go to the airport and you're asked for ID proof, what would you do?
Pull out my card.
Aadhaar card,
Aadhaar.
right? Would most people pull out your Aadhaar card as ID proof? Or PAN card? The gentleman we are, or Digi, right? Please come here, ma'am. The gentleman we have today, when asked for ID proof, the fellow passenger showed a newspaper. Here is an article about him in today's Times of India. And that was ID proof. And that's the gentleman we have today. Satish Maneshinde, please join me. Please sit, sir. Satish has agreed to share with us.
No. Coffee.
Stop, please. Coffee ends at 7:05.
After sunset,
Yeah, he just hinted something after the event, but that's Satish has. What we're going to do today is I'll have a little chat with him about his life story, life lessons. Fascinating story, I can tell you, from whatever little I've grasped. That may take about half hour or so, and then we would have about an hour or so for you, because I know a number of you have lots of questions to ask him, probing, searching questions, not just about his life, but more specifically about these wonderful cases that he handles, which gets him such high profile throughout. I want to first start. It's always a little acorn that produces the oak tree. But some people must have spotted the potential of the oak tree in that little acorn. So take us back to that village in Dharwad District where you grew up. Take us back to your school life, and I believe all of you were called Ajits.
yeah, my school, yeah.
Maybe they could foresee the invincibility back then. See, my Hindi has improved. And then talk us through how you came into university, led a number of protests and agitations, and notwithstanding that, were given all the privileges to help you complete the course. Ma'am, there's a seat here. Please come. So talk us through this childhood, the little acorn on the way to becoming the oak tree.
I started in my life as a very poor guy. My grandparents were settled in a village called Tergaon, which is on the outskirts of Dharwad District and Dharwad District, and it's the intersection of three states, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Goa. So my grandmother always told me that theirs was the largest home or the house or the building on the street. Radhika has seen it. And she was married into a Maharashtrian family, and she bore 18 children, out of which only 9 survived, and out of which only my father went to school. So they used to first farm in the morning. My father used to go along with the bullock cart and the kettle to the farm, do his farming, come back home, change, and then walk up to the school for 6 kilometers. There's a place called Haliyal. So that's how he started life, and he was a late beginner. He finished his matriculation, the 10th standard, at the age of 20. He must have finished his graduation around 27, 28, and landed with a job in the revenue department as a clerk, earning about 75 rupees. Sometime when he was about 30 years of age. And then my mother, she also belonged to a large family, and my grandfather was a renowned carpenter in Dharwad. So he produced four sons and two daughters. Each one of them became an expert in his own field. One of them was a car mechanic, one was a carpenter, one was a tailor. Calcutta has a Grand Street in which there was a store called the Grand Style. He was a master cutter there. And whenever he came to Dharwad to meet us, he always came with new clothes, and he always told us that anybody who comes to me with clothes, I first make a shirt for myself or a jubba for myself, and then make for the rest. Similarly, wherever there was possibility to make shorts and shirts for us, he used to make them, and that's how my mother dressed us. I was born in a place called Kundagod, which is in Karnataka, where if you have heard of Mumbai, both the Mumbais were born there, and that's how that place is famous. But the last recollection of that place that I have is I used to play in the veranda of a family called Desai, the Brahmins, landlord owners there, and they used to treat me well. And I still remember the grandfather of that house used to always feed me with pan supari after lunch, and I used to sleep in that house. And my father was transferred from there in 1962 to a place called Gadak. And my recollection is that that house had a huge well, and somehow on the last day a snake appeared before we left, and we let it go. And we shifted to a place called Gadak. And my father, being a government servant, was transferred every 3 to 4 years from one rural place to another rural place. So we are 6 of us, 3 brothers and 3 sisters. So it was very difficult for a government servant to educate them in a proper school. We used to go to a Kannada medium vernacular school. My sister became a doctor, getting a scholarship from the government of Mysore then. She did her medicine. But my father decided that if I were to educate these boys in rural schools, they may not make enough dent in life. So he decided to put us in a military school. Every state that time had a military school called Satish School. It's run by the Defense Ministry. Those days we got a scholarship if you passed the All India examination, competitive examination, with thousands of students used to appear for those seats of 2,200 rupees, which was enough to cover our expenses for 11 months. And that's how we started life. My schooling was very eventful. There were 32 students in each classroom. Each class had 33 sections, A, B, and C. So each classroom had 32 students. And somehow my father used to always write to me, Beta, every Wednesday was to get a letter writing period and prep. So I used to also write to him, and everything I still distinctly remember is he would always say, Beta, you improve your studies, you improve your studies, you improve your studies. That's the only way you can make it in life. So I was a very dullard, or I had no interest in studies those days. So I used to be always, the last 2 or 3 ranks were reserved for me. I used to be 32nd. Then I would write to him, my dear father, I'm improving, I'm working very hard. So I would write to him the next month that I'm 31, the next month 30. Then the terminal examination came where it to appear for the subjects that you study for 4 or 5 months, which was quite onerous. Again, I should go back to 32. And that mark sheet I would never show my father. So that's how it went on, and my school life was quite eventful in the sense that I did a lot of sports, a lot of social and extracurricular activities. Every Wednesday, when the Vinaka Gitmala was to be played, before that, we used to have a prep or a competition where it was extempore speech or an elocution competition or a debating competition for the school to train us. What luckily my father had done was he knew one of the teachers in the school. So he told him that my son is from a Kannada medium school and I want him to progress. You can do me one favor. Can you put him with English medium educated boys from school, students coming from English medium schools? So that teacher readily agreed, and that's how I lagged behind in my classroom, but I picked up English. So everybody must have read Wren and Martin, which was the best grammar book then, and even now it is the same. So I used to studied that very hard, and whenever my teacher, Mr. Shroff, used to ask a question, before he completed his question, my hand used to be up. So he spotted me and he said, I will put you in the debating team and the elocution competition. So probably that's what has helped me in my life as a lawyer. So I came out of school and in a military school, in Satish school, which is funded by the Defence Ministry. All of us are trained to join the National Defence Academy. So I wasn't interested because I said the 7 years of military life as a small little child from the age of 9 till 15 was enough for me, and I said I'll opt out. So every examination which was conducted in the Vidyanathana in Bangalore, I used to enter the examination hall at 9 o'clock, and the cutoff time for you to come in was 9:30. The earliest you could leave was 9:31. So I used to be the first student to walk out of the examination hall. And there were about like-minded boys like me, about 5 to 6 of us. We used to go to the Majestic Circle. It's a big complex in Karnataka. We used to go for a movie, see a movie, have lunch, come back for the next paper at 2 o'clock. 2:31 again we were out, go out of the examination hall, and that's how we gave up our chances of joining the National Defence Academy. Then, as luck would have it, I secured some good marks. I don't know how, but I got them in my board examination, the 11th standard. Mine was the last batch of the 11th standard board. And my father thought that I was very brilliant. I knew how I got those marks. So he said, "Beta, you have done very well in science subjects. Why don't you become an engineer?" I knew it involved a lot of mathematics. I hated. It involved a lot of physics. I hated. It involved chemistry. I hated. So I said, to please my father, I joined. And in 6 months, I gave up that course. So he was very disappointed. Then I took up commerce. There's a professor who had spotted me in the Lions Club meetings where I used to address. So he said, "Beta, you come and join the Commerce College," and he took me up. So I did well in commerce. I got a first class. I tried to join the Defence Forces again, because by then I was fed up with the civilian life. There was no discipline, there was no dressing sense, and there were no mannerisms. So I said, let me get back to the disciplined life. I passed all the examinations. I topped the Bangalore Service Selection Board. But the doctors who examined us medically, there's always a compulsory medical board, which is very strict. He said, "Beta, you got liver and spleen enlarged." I said, "Sir, I don't even drink." So I said, "Okay, now you start drinking because you got a license from me." That's how I still continue in spite of advice from doctors and friends. And I continued came in appeal. I've always been fighting in my life, right from my school time. I came to Pune in 1982-83 in appeal against the order of the Bangalore Board of Medical Sciences, the command hospital in Bangalore. So there was a doctor who examined me. He said, "You're perfectly all right, but unfortunately your liver and spleen, we can't change them. Everything else can be operated." So he said, "Beta, what do you want to do?" I said, "Sir, I tried to become a chartered accountant. The last seat which was left was given to the student who came first in my university. I was second or third. So I lost my chance." He says, "What does your dad do?" I said, "Sir, he's a retired government servant. And during his service, he had done law. So because he was in the revenue department, he tried to practice revenue courts. But he was not successful. Every morning he used to wear a jacket, go to court, come back. And he had no income, nothing. So I said, "Beta, why don't you join your father as a lawyer?" So I thought, they always said, politics and law is the last resort of a scoundrel. So I decided to become a lawyer. I came back to Dharwad from Pune, and by the time I applied for my university law course, the admissions were closed. So then I realized that since then I have learned to tap sources. So I went back to my professor, who used to play cards, he used to play tennis, he used to be in the university senate, and he was very close to the law college principal. So both of them were very thick friends. So I said, "Sir, can you put in a word to the principal to admit me as a last resort?" So the principal readily agreed, and I joined law. That's how I came to a law college. It went on for some time, and there were a lot of debates and questions happening. One fine day in February, March, the general secretary of the university, who had seen me leading strikes and burns, stoning buses, not burning, but only stoning and interviewing people. So he knew that I was a little aggressive in college and as a good speaker. So he said, Satish, we want to enlist your support. So I said, sir, I'm your junior, you tell me, give me any command. So I said, the new vice chancellor, Professor Nanjundappa, one of the famous economists of the country then, was being appointed as the vice chancellor. He had come down from Delhi in spite of being the member of the planning commission, given up all those positions only at the request of the chief minister that time. So he was to be garlanded, and they told me that we are all going to garland the vice chancellor, but we want to give you a speech, written speech. I said, see, I don't give you the subject. I'll word my own speech. And I said, what's the theme? He said, postponement of examinations. The favorite subjects for all the students. So I readily agreed, and I said, why have you chosen me? I said, you are a better speaker than me. He said, no, all of us are tall, so we'll be garlanding him. You stand in front of us. So the moment we garland him, he will try to sit down. Somebody will put the chair from rear, and you start your speech. And we'll tell the vice chancellor that till you agree, we will not allow you to sit in a chair. And that's what happened. And I delivered my speech. So he got very upset with me, and he asked me, from which college are you? I said, sir, I'm from the law university college. So I said, Ajappa has some students like you in the college. I'm going to talk to him and take you to task. And he said, this is the last time I'm adjourning, postponing examinations. And this will be the first and the last decision I'm taking on in this respect. So they all, in Karnataka, they put gulal, the pink color on you, and garland you. They brought me on a tractor, garlanded me in front of my college, and my principal of the law college, he used to sit there at 4 o'clock every day reading newspapers to find out what the students are up to in the university. So he was sitting in the middle of the university, and he saw me being garlanded, and he sent for me. So he spoke to me in Kannada. The gist of it was that, Satish, what the hell are you doing? Your professor, his economics professor who recommended you, the great friend of mine, I trusted him and I gave you admission in spite of the fact that admissions are closed. I created a special seat for you. And I see from your background that your father worked very hard for you. He sent you to boarding school. You may have got a government scholarship, but I'm sure your father spent enough money on you to send you to school. And this is not the culture of a guy who has gone from such a good family. I mean, you're a shame on your father and your family. So he said, I'm giving you two options. If you want to become a rowdy, if you want to become a political leader, you're out from my college. I won't allow you to appear for examinations. But if you want to take a challenge from me, I'm giving you one of the rooms allotted to the professors. You can sit there from 8 o'clock in the morning, till you go to sleep. You can even sleep in the same room. I'll provide you free electricity. I'll provide you food. I'll provide you any number of books from the library, because those days we were allowed to carry only one book from the library. So prove that you're a good student. So as luck would have it, I took up the challenge. I have always been taking up challenges. And my friend Pramod, who's here from college life, he knows me, and I took up the challenge, and I got a good rank. I came first or second in the first year. Then on, my career started. And as luck would have it, since I was in the debating team, I participated in an All India Good Court competition in 1982, which is conducted by the Bar Council of India, only for law students. There were about 75 universities. Bombay was the best team. So the finals were held in Pune, and the judges for that competition came from the Bombay High Court. the Chief Justice and the next senior most judge, Justice Chandurkar. So we fought and they couldn't decide on the winner. So they had a rematch and it went on for 3 hours. So we didn't give up, nor did Bombay give up. Bombay, culturally, professionally, it is the best place to be here. And those two competitors, one was Dharwad District. Everybody knows that he's a top lawyer. Another one was Amit Haryani, he was a top solicitor. So they were representing, so I said, the very look of it, we used to keep watching them in other rounds. So I told my partner that we have no chance, but we have nothing to lose. You're with the back against the wall, so we'll fight it out. And somehow the judges couldn't decide. So they had a rematch and they said, instead of giving a joint winner's trophy, we'll give the trophy to Bombay, but we'll hold Satish Maneshinde as the most outstanding student, law student of that year. And the Bar Council presented me with the certificate. And those days, I remember, the Bar Council of India Trust had a scheme. Whoever participated and did better in a competition, they used to pick up students from each university. They used to be sent as interns. Internship was not prevalent during my time. But they used to send us to senior lawyers in the Supreme Court or in the High Courts, wherever they chose. And they used to give us a stipend of 500 rupees per month for a year. So I chose that, and but as luck would have it.
I'll come to that.
As luck would have it, that was discontinued from my year.
Oh.
And I was crestfallen, and in the competition itself, Justice Chandurkar asked me, "Beta, where will you start?" He spoke to me in Marathi because I'm a Shinde. I knew Kannada as well as Marathi. Not as good as my wife speaks, but Karnataka Marathi is a little different. So I said, "Sir, I don't have anybody in Bombay, and my father can't afford to send me to Delhi. And I don't want to go to Bangalore, it's very communally divided." So he said, "You already made your thoughts, why don't you come over to Bombay? We'll set you up." That's how I landed in Bombay.
Wonderful. It's been fascinating. When I chose the theme against the odds, little did I realize there would be so many special moments which reflect those stories against the odds, those fights, being friendless, loner, fighting back, or whether it's Dharwad Kambata and Amit Haryani across the aisle and fighting back. There's a little bit of a rebel in you, but there's respect for age and seniors. So a lot of things come together, and here was this little acorn kind of growing roots and height. And then you come into the city. A couple of questions. You've chosen law. Within law, you then went on to choose criminal law. Why? Rarely does a person get a chance to work with his or her own idol. Amitabh Bachchan famously said in Shakti, because he got a chance to work with Dilip Kumar, Amitabh Bachchan said, "He's my idol and I get a chance to work with him." Of course, while he claims to have had so much butterflies in his stomach, nothing showed on screen. And you had that kind of a moment, but you mustered courage to go up to the gentleman and ask to work as his understudy. So walk us through those years in Bombay, landing in Bombay with 300 rupees is what you told me. Landing in Bombay with 300 rupees, choosing a profession, watching your idol, getting an opportunity with your idol.
See, first of all, talking about the 300 rupees, my father had retired in 78. There was no income in the family. My mother is a tough woman, and she wanted to keep the standard of our living to a certain level. So she maintained about 6 buffaloes. So she used to milk them, and we used to go and deliver it to, as your Dudwala comes to your door. I used to go and deliver if I was there, or my younger brother, or we had a boy who used to work for us. And we led a very tough life in the sense that I used to hear my mother and father wake up early, and the only thing they used to discuss was how to overcome the next day. So that condition, my father decided to tell me that you must make a career. On his retirement, he took a pension. He committed his pension. So he had promised my elder brother a motorcycle because if he became class 1 officer, gazetted officer. My father was always a class 3 government servant. So he had respect for a gazetted officer. So my brother joined the army. So he gave, out of the 30,000 that he committed, he gave him 10,000 rupees. And he bought a motorcycle, Java during those days. My younger brother wanted to do engineering, but he couldn't get a government seat. He had to get a donation seat. So he gave him 10,000. The next 10,000 was left. So he says, Satish, this is your, post-graduation, you have done nothing. So I think you'll be struggling here in Dharwad. So I'll make a house, 2-bedroom house, and we can stay there. So my ambition those days was a scooter, a Bajaj Vespa scooter and a 2-room house. So I landed in Bombay with those 300 bucks which my father gave me, and I'm so grateful to him. Came here, started living in Goregaon. Luckily, my cousin, my first cousin, had an apartment in Goregaon, Dudhsagar. And I used to, the first luggage that I brought to Bombay was full of a stove, a cooker, some utensils, rice, all other essentials to survive. And I started living in Bombay, and I used to cook my own food, clean my own house, and wash my own clothes. But then I used to be on time. When I came here, the Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court put me up with a lawyer called Mr. Bhimrao Naik. He ultimately went to the High Court. He joined as a judge. Became one of the best arbitrators in the country. Vineet Naik's father.
Yes.
And he was doing a lot of civil work. But the system during those days was that no senior paid any stipend to your juniors. So you had to struggle for yourself. So I stayed with him for about 6 to 8 months. I didn't like too much of civil work. So I was always enamored by Mr. Vaidyanathan. If you recollect, he had, during emergency, sneaked out of the country after giving a lecture in Kerala, which I had read about him. And he came back after the emergency was lifted. And one of the first meetings of the Janata Party of JP, Morarji Desai, Atalji, L.K. Advani, and all the stalwarts was in Dharwad. Pramod would remember it was in Gandhi Chowk, and we all attended it. Jethalani also spoke there. George Fernandez, Michael Fernandez. So I was so impressed with Mr. Ram Jethalani. Then he fought Indira Gandhi's election petition in Chikmagalur. So I used to always read about him, and one day I spotted him in the High Court. So I tried to catch him, and I had to tell him that, sir, I want to join you, but he was so fast, the old man. And he got into his car and left. So next day, I stood right behind him in the High Court. Next time when I spotted him. Moment he finished and he was going out, I pulled his gown. So I said, sir, I want to speak to you. So he said, हाँ बेटा बोलो क्या है? Then he saw me in the lawyer's clothes, and I said, sir, I want to join you. Can I get the chance to work with you? He said, you want to join me? And he came to me directly and asked me, who sent you to me? I said, sir, nobody. I said, I followed you right from my childhood, so I want to work with you. So he said, you come with your credentials and marks and all that. So I went to him in the evening at 5:36. So he saw everything. I was a rank holder from the Karnataka University in law. I had this certificate from the Bar Council of India, of which he was the chairman. And that trust that he had created to give a stipend was his. Ram Jethalani set up that trust. So he said, you're very comfortable with all this. Why don't you go and work with some senior? I said, no, sir, that 500 rupees has stopped. So I said, okay, join me from now. I'll give you 500 rupees a month. So for about 6 months, he gave me 500 rupees. And then he saw me working with him, and he said, now you attend to all of the work in the chambers. So that 500 rupees became 500 rupees per matter in 1984. So that was a huge increment for me. And in 85 and 86, if you all knew in Ganeshpuri there's an ashram, Vaidyanathan ashram. So I was appearing for the Swamiji there, the lady one, who had rebelled against her brother. So one fine day we got a good order, and somebody in the chamber told George Afif, who was trustee that time, that pay him fine. So he wrote a check and gave it to one of the senior colleagues of mine, and he had written a check for 5,000 rupees. So he said, I told you not 5,000, 500 rupees. That's his normal fee. He said, no, I am very impressed with Satish, let him take it. So the guy kept the check with himself. And after the client left, he said, Satish, I could have stopped this, and told him to change it to 500 rupees. So then in 1985, I don't know where I could get this guts. I said, see, my dear friend, I always believe in destiny. I was just trying to get this 5,000 rupees. Nobody can stop this, not even you or your father. God has sent me this amount, and I believe that I deserve it. So he had no face to tell me, and that's how I carried on working with him. I started the Antules case, all of you know, and that's where this paper thing came, and I was traveling by a local train from Goregaon. I used to be in my house around 7:38 in the morning. Take a local at about 8:42, fixed local. And we had a few friends, all bankers and executives. So we used to never get a seat to sit. We used to all stand in the first class, reading newspapers or joking or playing some game. So one fine day, a TC came in, and he started checking everybody's tickets. So at that time, you could carry a ticket with a pass, a ticket with the identity card. So I had my pass but didn't have the identity issued by the railway authorities. So he started fighting with me, and that's when one Mr. Kamath, old man, who was a senior officer in the bank, he says, sir, why don't you see on his identification? His picture appeared with Ram Jethmalani in the Indian Express, not the Times. So he showed him the picture. That's how people started recognizing me in those days. And I went on to do a lot of good cases. The first decade of my life, I did a lot of cases of smugglers. There used to be a law called Coffee Kosa, like the Misa, where they used to detain all the smugglers. So all these small little guys like Haji Mastan, Yusuf Patel, Karim Lala, and the top smugglers in India were Jethmalani's clients. So it was my responsibility to prepare the papers right from the first day till it was heard. So I got along with that kind of work. And the second decade of my life, I did all these gangsters cases. So some of those were Dawood Ibrahim, Chota Rajan, Arun Gauli, there's a guy called Dolakia, there's Karim Lala, the Pathan gang or the Satta gang, or this big guy called Sautya. One fine day, I don't know if I must tell you this. There was a guy, there's a family from Khar. They had a nice little bungalow, and a lady used to come there, and she used to come with the daughter. So I was impressed with the way they were fighting the case. So I told one of the guys who used to come to me to brief us in Dawood's cases, yeah, why don't you help them just look after this family? He said, sir, fikr nahi karo. I said, fikr nahi karo, matlab, kya karoge? He said, sir, मैं कल शाम को आता हूँ बच्चों को लेकर. I thought he'll come with some small little workers. So he came with 4 handsome boys. I still remember the names. Sunil Sawant, he used to be called as Sautya, who carried on the JJ shootout, where he killed somebody in the hospital. Then there's a guy called Srirang Pawar. So they had all put the tilak and marathas and all that, the handsome boys. So I thought there's some executive somewhere or something. So he said, sir, तैयार हो क्या ये हम सब लोग. So I told that the guy was called Manish Lala, my wife knew him. So I said, क्या कौन सी तैयारी करके आए? They just opened their shirt. Each one of them had 2 to 3 guns on their waist. I said, boss, I did not expect this from you. The least of all you do is bring them to my office with these guns. And I don't want you to do this kind of work. So whatever he did, he helped those families. And I must tell you and share with you that I didn't get scared doing any of these cases. I didn't discuss these cases with my wife, otherwise she would stop me from working. In the earlier stages, Dharwad used to operate from Bombay, Pakmodia Street. There used to be a huge wadi there, and it had a big gate and all that. So people used to come in and go out. Though there was no actual screening, he had their men. So one fine day, this Manish Lala took me, that sir, आओ आपको हम हमारे headquarters दिखाते हैं. So he took me in there, and I found all kinds of guys, and they literally showed me a target practicing area where they used to practice shooting. That was one. I went to meet Arun. Arun Gauli was a very devout Mata ki devotee during Dashera and all that. So he said, no, he wants to meet you. He wants to seek your advice personally. And so I readily agreed. And that time there was no big case pending against him. So I went to meet Arun Gauli, and they took me there. They first took me to the Devi. They did darshan, tilak lagaya, then they garlanded me, they gave a shawl, they gave me some gifts, gold coins and all that. So I was very impressed. I said, they normally call him daddy, all his followers. So I said, daddy can't put a daddy put a. He said, Sahib Basai, he'll come. So they made me sit on a charpai in a kholi, in the chawl. So after some time, there was some noise, tuck from the bottom. So you're seeing these Hamas tunnels now, but I'm sure they existed in Bombay those days. Because Dagdi Chawl, if anybody has passed by that area, it's on the Sat Rasta area. It has a huge gate in the front. So police, cops, crime branch, they used to raid them every now and then. So what these guys used to do was they used to lock it all the time. So if anybody came in, any unknown guy came in, the message used to go to daddy immediately, and he used to slip away from there. That's how Gaudi was never caught. Till recently, when he was caught for a murder. And Chota Rajan, we used to operate from Chembur. There's a theatre, I forget the name, so they took me there. He came from nowhere, met us. And from there onwards, I said, I don't want to meet you any guys. All that I used to receive was a telephone call. That, sir, hamara aadmi aake milega aapko. So they used to come with the fees. First, the method in underworld is first they deliver you your fees. Because their funda is that they know that if we have retained the lawyer, he will appear for us. He will not ditch us. They are very faithful to their lawyers. And you may ask me that how come when you appeared for all these rival gangs, how come you are not scared, or did you find any security threat? Once one of those guys told me that, sir, aap fikar nahi karo. We fight each other. We don't fight each other's lawyers, because we need you sometime. So that's how I'm still alive, and I never encountered. Some lawyers have faced it. Some lawyers, what they do is they get into their work. They encroach the business, or some of them do fixing. Some of them promise results. We have seen many of them being caught, many of them shot. So as long as you do your duty as a professional, straightforward, like a doctor, you have no option. I have an option. Of quoting a fee which is much higher. But then it once so happened that in spite of my high fee that I quoted, the guy came up with the fee, and I said, it's very good. Why did I quote so less? That's how I balance my life. And one more incident which comes to my memory is, I had once gone to London in '97. I think my first or second visit. So those days we did not have mobiles where you used to get messages or calls, or there was no email. So the best way was to go back to your office on the first, second day, return all your calls, because many clients would be wanting you in your absence, and there is nothing like dialing each other in the foreign countries. So I used to always come there and return calls. And the first day when I came in, this Manish Lala guy that I told you, he had an office in the same building somehow because he recruited to some area and he got an office. So he was in the building. So I told my driver, I used to have a driver called Vasant. He used to be always in safari looking like a cop. And I told Vasant that why don't you go and call Manish Lala. So he said, sir, kha pee ke so gaya. So that was a Friday. He had got saucer. He went to Dongri, had some mutton biryani and come back and slept. So he said, his man Friday says that moment he wakes up, he will let you know. So I said, okay. Then I started answering my calls. And repeatedly, my driver came into my cabin and I was making calls and tried to remind me that you have to talk to him. So I didn't. I told him that since I'm returning calls, don't disturb me. But then he pushed his door and came back, sir, somebody shot him and left. That's what I'm telling you, not 1 minute. So that's the time when I decided that I would leave that building wherever I was in Fountain, Flora Fountain. There's a building called 65 MG Road, old rental building. Incidentally, that building where I had my office was occupied by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The first floor, the entire floor. So that was the first office that I bought after I separated from Jethmalani in 1993. I thought 10 years of practice with Jethmalani was enough and somebody else could join him and get an internship. And I had some issues, so I left. So the first office that I purchased was in Muhammad Ali Jinnah's building. And as luck would have it, the first place that I saw, I liked because it suited my requirements, 30 feet by 10 feet, 300 feet. So I told the guy, the landlord's representative had come in. I said, Yusufbhai, I'm not going to use the toilet, a regular common toilet. I want a toilet in this office. He said, sir, आप बेशक करो कहीं भी आप टॉयलेट डालो मैंने आपको पाइप निकाल के देता हूँ. So I was wondering what this is. So I called the building plumber. So building plumber told me, हाँ सर, ये जो आपका ऑफिस है वो पहले टॉयलेट था. ये तो कहीं से भी आपको पाइप निकल सकता है. So for all the Vastu Gurus, I sat in the toilet and flourished in that office. And then when this Manish Lala was killed, I decided it's not a safe building because there was no security, there was no nothing. I shifted to Ben Box house. And that's how I stayed near my house. There's also another history why I came to Ben Box house. I was living in Goregaon, and some fine day my cousin told me that he's coming into Bombay. He needed the house. So I had to vacate the house, so I shifted from place to place. I shifted to Malad, I shifted to Kandivali, I shifted to Borivali. And when I started making some money, I shifted to Andheri. That's when a common friend of mine introduced me to Radhika's father. And he told me that, see, my daughter, she's a librarian in the Bombay University, but after marriage, she's not going to work. I said, that's the kind of wife I want. So, but I had enough income that time I could sustain. So then we got married. I had nothing, I had no house, I had no nothing, but I had confidence in me. I got married and I got a lot of gifts, some 50 to 20,000 rupees as marriage gifts. With that, we went for a honeymoon. I don't know how much we spent from that, and we came back after a month. I spent some time in Dharwad. So that time I had a house or a room that I had booked in, not booked, I had rented in Borivali. So my father-in-law said that how will my daughter spend time after you leave at 8 o'clock? I used to work 18 hours. That was the only way you could work on Jethmalani. These two targets are very stiff. So I used to leave at 8 and come back after 10 o'clock. So my father-in-law said, how will my daughter spend the full day? What will she do there? So he suggested to me that only two of us are living, father-in-law and mother-in-law. He was very kind. And I'm grateful to that. I'm not saying that because my wife is sitting there, but I've always said that. He tolerated me, he gave me shelter, he gave me confidence, and I started living with him in Worli Sea Face. After some time, I bought my own apartment in Bandra, shifted to Bandra. Then one fine day, I remember I put in some lot of money with a stockbroker friend of mine. And as usual, he defaulted. He said, now, I said, now send my money back, I need it. So he said, sir, मेरे पास 100 और 50 के नोट नहीं है. I can send you 10 and 20 rupee notes from Bhuleshwar. I said, I gave him some bad words and I said, I'm sending you a tempo, fill all of it and send it. And he still defaulted. So one fine day I came to know that he was very close to a builder called Mr. Gupta, Lloyd Steel. That time Lloyd Steel was a very big company. So I had a few matters that I was handling with Mr. Gupta. So the old man was very kind to me and he used to meet me, come to me all the time, though he had a kidney problem. So Gupta ji said, I called Gupta ji and I said, Gupta ji, aapke Lloyd's garden mein koi flat baki hai kya? I remember Raj Thackeray, myself and 3 other friends had gone to see that building. And Raj Thackeray was to buy 2 to 3 flats there and somehow it didn't work out. It was still available. I knew that I'd seen this. So he told me, beta, I kept one flat for my family. Dharwad padega to use the terrace. Why don't you go and have a look at it? So I had a look at it. I liked it. All the properties that I bought thereafter. So first look, first buy. So I somehow liked them and I took my wife to see that and she also liked it. So next day I bought all the place and I shifted there. And that was my abode till 2012.
Then you came.
Then I came here. This also has a long history. I told this to Anju at some stage. She didn't like the way it happened. But anyway, that's how it was. And, I started progressing in life. First year in 1993, after I left Jetulani, I had no work. I had picked up golf, being a member of the US Club. And somehow I had to make my wife believe that I am very busy. So I used to go golfing after attending a few matters in court from 1 o'clock to 6:30. Spent time on the golf course with a friend of mine called Pradeep Lala. He also used to finish his work by about 12 o'clock. We used to play golf, have a couple of drinks, come back, and show as if you're very tired from work. So my poor wife believed me, and I started coming up in life that way, and I got a break of Sanjay Dutt. Sanjay Dutt was Jetulani's client when I was working with Jetulani, and I had appeared for him that time, and I was instrumental in getting him bailed out. So for some reason, they could not pull along. So one fine day, a close friend of mine, Kajal Anand, all of you must have read about her in media, and she's close to Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh, and all these people. So she called me. She was a lawyer working with us. So she said, Satish, do you have time to meet us? I said, what do you mean time to meet us? I said, I always come to meet you in your house and that. She said, no, there's a special person who wants to meet you. So I said, come over to my office. So she came to my office. Before I could reach my office from the High Court, there's a big crowd standing outside my building and the office. So they said, Datsabai. Sunil Dutt had come to meet me with his few other friends. So he requested me to take up the case again. I said, on one condition, let me meet Sanjay Dutt. So I went to meet Sanjay Dutt in the Atharud jail. So I said, Sanju, you thought of me very good, but tell me what's your target? So I said, Satish, I don't know. I want to be bailed out as of now. So he had lost right up to the Supreme Court. There's no chance of getting out on bail. And I said, if you give me time, give me 6 months to a year, I'll bail you out. But I'll do it in my own fashion. So that time there was a judgment from the Supreme Court that all Tata cases had to be reviewed every 6 months. So I made a request to Balasaheb. I knew Balasaheb very well since 1986 because I had gone to meet him in connection with the property which was occupied by Talat Aziz, and the landlord was a lady from Japan, a Sindhi lady. She had a handicapped child. So she was trying to evict him and he was fighting cases. So she had taken an appointment with Balasaheb. So Balasaheb had given an audience at 12 o'clock. He used to have a darbar like this. So the lady who was her relative was the owner of Lilavati Hospital, Kalavati Asuman. She requested me to stay with her as her son in her house. She says, because you stay far away in Goregaon, I can't team up with you. Come and stay with me. She treated me like a child of her own. Then we went to meet Balasaheb. We left early around 11:30. We reached his house in Kalanagar. So as we went, I was the first next to his seat on his right. Normally that was meant for his most ardent followers. But I went and sat there and wouldn't get up from there. So as he came in, he saw my card. Maneshinde, very good, very good. You are a lawyer. I said, sir, I'm Maneshinde. So like I corrected. So he said, you're trying to correct me? I said, sir, similarly, if I called you Balasaheb Thakre, if I misspell your name, you're obviously not going to like it. Because your name is given to you by your Purvajanam se aaya hua hai. Similarly, my name is at least 500 years old. I don't like anybody misspelling my name or mispronouncing my name. Tu mala shikotos, you are a good boy. So since then I became a friend of his. And I remember I used to always have a drink with him. In 1990, he was fighting the Hindutva case. So when he was fighting the Hindutva case, we used to be meeting in Jethmalani's house. He was in Jethmalani's client. So since I was the junior most, I was given the charge of maintaining the bar and looking after everybody's drink. So along with them, I used to also drink. He knew that I was drinking whiskey. So there was some agitation in Maharashtra that time where he was to be arrested, 1991-92. So he called all the Maharashtra Shiv Sena lawyers, Balasaheb's lawyers. So all of them were sitting in his old bungalow in a semicircle, and he came and sat. So he asked each one. One said, sir, Millingo Pani Geto, Sharbat Geto, Coffee Geto, Cha Geto. Maneshinde, you will have whiskey with me. He knew, and I used to drink with seniors. And I never hesitated drinking with seniors because I remember the owner of KC College and all these Sindhi men. Yeah. So I had friends aged from 18 to 81, and I was somewhere 31, 32, and I used to enjoy their company, and that's how I made a request to Balasaheb with my closeness that I had with him to try and bail out Sanjay Dutt. And he helped us a lot. How he did it, it's a different story.
I'm going to come in here because I know there are lots of people who want to ask you questions about. So I'll just take one more question. Have one more question for you, and then we turn it over to the audience.
Actually, we need more time for
dealing with stardom is not easy. Right? We've seen so many people. In fact, dealing with stardom is truly against the odds. You have an odd example of MS Dhoni coming from Ranchi, knows how to deal with stardom and is super successful. You've kind of over the last 30 years lived in what I would call glitzy environment. Whatever case you take up makes headline news. It's surrounded by kind of little bit living on the fringes, so therefore there's added sex appeal to it. How do you cope with this? And what is brand Satish Maneshinde? Where do you draw the line to say, this is me and this and no further? How do you want to define that brand?
I don't call it a brand. I just do my duty as it comes to me. One thing that has helped me all my life is my schooling in Chinese school, Bijapur. We're trained to face any eventuality. We were taught good English, good Hindi, regional languages. So I can communicate with people. And because I did not concentrate on studies but took over extracurricular activities, I became a good communicator. Even in 1984, when I joined Jethmalani, I was dealing with the entire press in Maharashtra and India because the Antuday's case was very vibrant and very highlighted in the entire press. Similarly, thereafter, when I carried on, if you remember Harshad Mehta's incident, where he promised the Prime Minister, he said that I paid the Prime Minister a crore of rupees. There was a press conference held, and I had organized a press conference along with my other colleagues. So there were about 250 to, I think maybe 500, 250 photographers in TV and about 500 persons from the press in the Taj. And it went off successfully. And I dealt with them all through. During one of those interactions with the press, there's a guy called Sanjay Sayani, who used to write for Midday, Observer, and all these newspapers. He's a freelance writer, and he wrote a story in the meeting. I have a copy, and I think I posted it on Facebook. It said Satish Maneshinde, the third man. Then it so happened that I became popular with that story, but a lot of people called me and said that it's very harmful for you. I said, no, the dice is cast. I'm not going to look back. My father always told me that once you take a step forward, never look back. So even when I left Jethmalani, he convinced me to come back to him. But I said, sir, I have already stepped out. I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to retrace my steps. And that's how I went on. And maybe he told me, Satish, you were very arrogant. I said, sir, even my mother told me that. My teacher told me that. And my guru, Jethmalani, is telling that I must definitely be arrogant. And like my wife said, you don't listen to anybody in life. And there's no point telling you anything. So that's my nature. Similarly, when you handle all these guys, I handle a lot of debates in the press, in various but my thinking has always been with what one of my old friends told me, that Satish, just be very careful before you speak. Because once you speak, it's out. You can't take it back. So what you can do in 10 minutes, do it in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. That's why I'm laid back, I'm very relaxed. I think before I speak. And I know I made a large number of mistakes in my life, but I don't regret them. Because the regret is worse than a suicide. So whenever I deal with them, whenever I deal with the press, when I deal with individuals, I always say that, my friends always ask me that, who is the next big client coming to you? I say every client that comes to me is a big client. Whether it was Anju's driver, or somebody else's servant, or Rory Screwwaller's ex-driver, they're all same to me. And I handle with the same finesse, same kindness, same attitude, and maybe same arrogance. Once a Punjabi guy, Punjabi senior citizen, Mr. Dharwad and one Sardar, they came out to Mr. Jethmalani. They were living in Sindh Cooperative Society at Andheri. It's a huge complex where it housed all the displaced Punjabis and Sikhs after independence. So they had a little problem in the society. And I was handling the case, and I had not lost or I had not got any adverse order. But in spite of that, Talwar went up to Jethmalani. He must have been about 75 to 80 in those days, and I must have been about 23, 24. He went and complained to Jethmalani that, sir, Satish is very rough, he is very rustic. So जिसने said, अरे तलवार साहब क्या की difficult? आप देखो सतीश को कितना आराम से बैठा है. आपने चिढ़ाया होगा उसको. क्या? ये गांव से आया है. He is either rude, he is either rustic, he is either mannerless, but he is not unkind. He'll always look after you and he'll not fail. So he said he is one of my best boys. But if you're complaining about him, I know no one else to suggest because he's the best guy to deal with your case. And he said, see, he's sitting in the other cabin. How beautifully he is dealing with those ladies. So that old man said, sir, lady भी और मर्द में बहुत फर्क है. So people have called me arrogant, rude, even in this building during the pandemic. There are a lot of exchange of messages, and I always think, what's my audience? There would always be people who hate you. There will always be people who dislike you. But my larger family or larger number of people, if I'm serving even one of them, I'll be happy to do that. I don't care what 99 people think about. And today, when I was supposed to come here, I looked at yesterday, when I was sitting in the court, I was outside Bombay, I was sitting in the court, I was waiting for my turn and I saw messages from you and message from him posting that act of your election to come for the meeting. So I saw one person who had confirmed that deals and one or two with you. I just thought to myself that is there anybody interested in listening to what I have to say? And I was reminded of a fact that in 2001, I was then a member of the turf club of Royal West India Turf Club. And in every annual general meeting, you always have people making questions to the board or the chairman or whatever. And soon after the main agenda is over, when you have to do it with the chairman's permission, people always rise up. And as luck would have it, there's an intense voting that time between Vijay Mallya and Cyrus Poonawalla group, where I was supporting the Cyrus Poonawalla group. So people immediately after that agenda was over, they started leaving. But one guy, Jimmy Awasia, my friend, is a lawyer, he rose. Because he rose, like they didn't want to get up from the seat, I was on the dais. I realized that I was the only one sitting on the dais, and one of my lawyer friends, Presswala, he was the only person in the audience, and he had one person listening to his speech for 1 hour, and one person sitting on the dais tried to listen to him and tell him, sit quiet. So I didn't even get scared that I won't have any audience today. So when I saw more than one or two,
Satish, it's difficult for you to appear modest. Okay, so I'm not going to push you into that. But I mean, one area where he's been modest is about the fact that he thinks Satish Maneshinde is not a brand. How many of you think Satish Maneshinde is a brand?
see, I'll tell you why. The reason is this. I'm just entering the 65th year. I practiced only 40 years. There are lawyers who practice for 45, 50, 70, 75 years and still go on. I don't think I achieved much. I may have appeared for a large number of clientele. There are many more things that I had in my mind when I thought that I should be a brand. I don't think that I'm a brand. I'm just doing my duty as it comes to me, like I told you. And there's still large number of things to achieve, which I want to, and there's definitely not money.
Absolutely.
Today, out of, if I say I have 100 clients, 90% of them, most of them are pro bono, which never get reported. Because my wife leads a simple family. We are a simple Maharashtrian family. I may have a very vibrant face outside, but we live a very small life. Even if I give her a lakh or two, she says lots of money from that. We live a simple life. We don't waste food. We don't throw away food. Similarly, in my own family in Dharwad, my mother lives in a house which is now comfortable enough to have a 3-bedroom house. We are now 25 of us, 6 of us in the family with their spouses, children. So if all of us meet, we're 25. But till my last visit, we all slept on the floor, we all slept in the living room, we all led a simple life. So I don't think any person who's a brand would do all these kinds of things, you know.
Let me just come
That
in
doesn't
here.
go with the brand. You still lead a simple life.
Which is great. Being true to your roots is a very, very important facet. A couple of days ago, the Wall Street Journal had an article by Professor John Ellis, who was moaning about the fact over the past 30 years, US universities have been taken over by the extreme left. There is just one ideology, and it's rare to have freedom and free speech and candor across spectrum in campuses. So it's very refreshing to listen to someone speak such a forthright fashion.
See, like you wrote a byline that from village to Imperial.
Yes.
Now, how did I come to Imperial? I just missed that line, you know. And, one of those fine days, I was sitting with Balasaheb in the evening, 8 o'clock, 8:30. That was my time to go to Balasaheb. I used to have whiskey, used to have a champagne or wine, or depending upon his mood. So somebody called to say that so and so has come. So it was our Dilip Thakkar. Dilip Thakkar was and is still close to the Thakkar family. And he was being harassed by one IS officer because he was very close to Uddhav Thakkar. And during Shiv Sena time, when the government was there, that officer was shunted out or harassed or whatever. So once he came into power, started harassing all those people who were connected to the Thakkar family. So all of you would know there's a building called Suraj Apartments. So in that connection, he was trying to harass them, and because he was part of the head of the Mada. So Balasaheb said, "Arey Satish, माझा मित्र आहे, गुजराती मित्र आहे, दिलीप ठक्कर. याचं जरा काळजी घे." So I said, "Yes, sir." So Dilip came to me. We worked on the matter. We were successful in getting the results that we desired. So I still remember it must be 95, 96. Imperial was not even conceived. There was a huge slum here, it was being talked about. Shiv Sena had just floated that idea of SRA. So Dilip had come to me and he told me that Satish bhai, हमारा एक project चल रहा है, Imperial Bank. This is the Imperial Bank's property. That's how it is called, Imperial. So we're trying to work out. आप जरूर एक फ्लैट लेना वहाँ. So I said, what will be the cost? He said, cost छोड़ दो, आपके लिए तो हम reserve करके रखेंगे. Then I forgot about it. I didn't ask him anything. There was no communication. There was no writing. Just to tell you what kind of good people I met in Bombay. So Dilip bhai once called me. I used to see this building being constructed, dealing with some litigation, then IIT report and all that. So it was all happening, but I never discussed about my flat. But after that, there was no discussion. One fine day in 2006, after Poonawalla defeated Malia, there was a party in Shikhar Kunj. Giants live there. So one of the Giants had hosted a party for Cyrus Poonawalla. So we were all there, and Dilip came up to Cyrus and he said, "Cyrus, why don't you buy the top floor? I'll give you to 10,000 rupees a foot." And they're all, he was buying about 50 flats. That the negotiating, somehow it didn't go through. But Dilip had never mentioned to me anything about my flat. So I was wondering how to ask him, and I think the prices during that time were about 10,000 rupees a foot, because nobody was willing to invest. It was under litigation, there was no future, construction had stalled. But I knew somehow things will work out. So 2007 or 8, when the building was almost ready, दिलीप भाई called me. He said, Satish भाई आपसे मिलना है. तो मैं बोला ऑफिस आ जाओ. I normally don't go to clients' offices and homes. So he said, नहीं आप ही का काम है आओ. You'll be happy. So I went to Chopati, his office. So he said, इतने फ्लैट है, आप जाके देख लो, whichever you want. So then I came to the building. I saw a couple of flats. I saw on the 40th floor. I saw on the 36th floor, 32nd floor. So I went back to him and I said, I'll buy. He had offered me from the 30th to the 40th, or maybe 40th to the 20th, all facing bridge candidates, linear flats. So I said, they are the best flats. He said, yeah, they're the best flats. That's why I'm offering you. So he said, you select any flat. So I said, I'll buy the 36th floor. He said, why 36? Why not 40th? I said, 3 and 6 makes my wife's number 9. So give me 36th floor. So he said, okay. Then somehow, for some reason, there was a request to shift to 34th. I came to 34th. So I said, but you're not asked me the price that I have to pay you. I should be able to afford, because by then the building was going higher. So I said, Satish bhai, you stood by me. Whatever figure you want to fill up in a check, you give it to me, I'll take it without. That's how I came into this building. And I always met good people in life. And Dilip bhai is one of them. Many of you wonder many times as to why in the board meetings or when there are issues, you don't take up sides. I remain away, some things you have to always keep in mind that the best thing was the shelter here. And this community is so beautiful and so good that I have said that why not only me, even my next generation should live here. Hopefully my daughter also will continue to live here even if she is married, as and when that happens. So I've been lucky in my life.
Beautiful facet for the larger good drives your thing. Let me stop here and I'm going to turn it over to the audience.
It's already 8:30.
Yes, we'll be. Who would like to go first? Yes, sir.
Satish, your brand to me before I met you was that you were having 2 guns, 4 commandos, and walking around. With the kind of cases you were handling, each was a very tough one. And you have one after another the tough cases. So, what is the secret sauce of Satish Maneshinde?
See, I always tell myself that your protection is God. You do, for example, a witness comes to me. I always tell him, go and tell the truth. He said, sir, आप criminal वकील हो, आप सच बोलने के लिए बोल रहे हैं. I said, see, truth is one thing which you don't need to memorize, which you don't need to recollect. It's always there in your mind, the way you've seen it, the way it has happened. Go by the truth. If you try to deviate, you'll say one lie, and with that one lie, you will repeat 100 lies and you'll be caught. So follow that path. Second, if you can't do good in life, don't do bad. Just stay away from there. Change your path. Third one is that if you do it honestly, I always tell people that even donkeys work hard. But it has to be, thieves also work hard. They have to work harder than us. They have to be one step ahead of us. So if you do it sincerely and honestly, you may not get the results that you want in the first instance, you get in the second instance. Sanjay, that took me 1 year. We failed at every step. All my life, I always failed. I was a failure in my school. I was a failure in my college. I was a failure in life. I didn't have a job for some time. I was penniless in Bombay. But these failures are stepping stone to success for me in my life. If you heard soon after World Cup, Ravi Shastri said that if India had lost one match, they would come back with the winning note. Similarly, if you have a failure in your life, I always feel that you'll come back with better performance. And it has happened to me in my life. Many times I lost. It's not that I have always won. And about this gun toting people around me, I always felt that if you don't harm somebody, if you don't interfere in somebody else's life, if you don't do something wrong, if you don't do something illegal, immoral, you don't need any protection. God is there to protect you. There's one divine force always helping us. I told this to Jethmalani that even you can't change my destiny. God is there. He will help me. He says, Beta, I'm just trying to advise you that this is a place where you have worked for 10 years and you continue working here. But I said, sir, God has willed otherwise. I have already gone out, so I don't want to come back and change things in life. I don't want to change. God has already changed it for me. That's how I started on my own. But I felt bad from the limelight that I had. The top clients in Bombay or India. I went all over. I defended Simranjit Singh Man. I appeared for Longowal. I appeared for Ramkrishna Hegde. I went to Lucknow for Sanjay Singh, in that Modi's case. Amitabh Gandhi. I went to Patna for Lalu. People don't like my clients, but I love my work because even if it's the worst criminal or the worst political leader, somebody has to do that job. Why don't you do it cleanly? Some political leaders in Andhra Pradesh, they're bribing a judge through a high court judge. They're all arrested and they never got bail for years together. So I always tell clients that don't try to come back with 4 documents and try to get a shortcut, because the offense that you have been charged with is very minor, or maybe you'll be bailed out. But if you do these things, you will get into a bigger problem and you will never come out on bail. Don't try and increase your liability. So, a lot of clients hear to this story and they walk out. They leave.
But how did you manage all the stresses? I mean, every case.
Like I told you, my senior friend, he must be over 91 now. He always told me, जहाँ पे 10 मिनट लगता है वहाँ पे 20 या 30 मिनट लो. Relaxed tone में करो. My wife doesn't like my relaxed way of living for court because I give tension to others, but I'm comfortable. My clients feel that, sir, I नहीं अभी तक, they are more tense, but I'm still comfortable. There are other lawyers who are fighting with me in court. I don't utter a word. I make them shout, because if you get upset, you're going to miss your thought. You're going to miss your line of argument. And you're about to commit more mistakes. So, let the barking dogs bark.
I think very subtly he communicated something by attributing it to the bigger force called God, and by communicating that he kind of does it as duty. So he doesn't fall in love with his clients. He's in love with his work. Zari.
Yeah, Satish, in the course of your extensive career, you have had several occasions where you're professionally compelled to take decisions or take actions which go against your core values and beliefs. How do you reconcile the eternal turmoil?
When I go to court, my heart and my conscience is left at home. It doesn't go with me to my work. Because on one such days, Vijay Mallya, who then had a bungalow in Marway, he had a security chief, Sardar. He would ask me, why do you do all such immoral and violent cases? Does it not hurt you? So he came up to Jethmalani's office and he came with a bloodstained shirt and a talwar in his hand, and he said, sir, इस तलवार पे उसका नाम लिखा था, इसलिए हमने उसका मुंडी काट दिया. What had happened was that he had a Maharashtrian wife, very attractive. So the local hoodlums used to harass her. So one fine day, he and 2 other Nepalis invited that fellow to the bungalow of Mallya on the beach, got him drunk, sometime in July, and when he was drunk, the two Nepalis held his hands and legs, and the Sardar took out his sword. Bole so Nihal, he chopped his head and came to us. So I defended that guy. I didn't feel bad because he was morally right. That how can I not protect my? And he got convicted in the trial court, but the High Court let him out. So I felt a sense of satisfaction came to me that maybe he did something wrong, but that was a hoodlum. Like I won't name anybody, but these things happen in life. So I was doing a case related to the stock market in 80s. Highly fought case, the share switching case, if you remember, L&T share switching case. So at which time when you're doing the case, when you're doing all important cases, all these hoodlums, fixers always keep coming with offers. So the guy came to me and gave me some story that he karunga, wo karunga. So I wasn't comfortable with it. I had a very senior RSS person advising us during those days. Now he's in the top 1 or 2 in the country. So I said, boss, you think about it because tomorrow you should tell me that such a big war that you're fighting should lose because of this. So he told me that let me think over what he has told me directly. I didn't interfere in that conversation. So I said, my friend, this is quite immoral. So he said, let me think over and come back to you tomorrow morning. So he called me about 6:30 in the morning. Said, I found an answer. Why don't you meet us in the office? So we met and he said, Satish, I read Bhagavad Gita. I go to the Gita all the time when I'm faced with such questions. And Gita tells me that poison kills poison. So these things do happen and I don't feel bad about it. I was doing one case, I was doing it early with my in-laws that time, and Khan Saab, who was a smuggler in the docks, he used to smuggle naphtha and oil. So he called me through a High Court judge, a retired High Court judge, and they were good buddies. He said, sir, I wanted to save my driver's family. I said, okay, send him. So the driver's brother came to me and told me that the driver's brother was arrested. So the driver came to me and told me that, sir, my brother has been arrested because he called our nephew home and uska mundi kaat diya. And he threw the mundi in the Arabian Sea and the body was put on a train. And the body was located in Kalyan and they arrested him on the ground that the body was identified with the tailor's mark. Police are also quite smart in our country. So the police came to his house, they searched and they found bloodstains in the house. So what had happened in that case was that this Khan Saab's driver's brother had 2 or 3 children. His nephew, in the Muslim community, you're allowed to marry your first cousin. So he's harassing his first cousin, and so the girl complained to the father that he has been harassing me, trying to poke at me and this and that. So one fine day, the father called the boy home, gave him a nice cup of tea. He fainted. They chopped his head, put the head in the Arabian Sea, and came to me and said, now defend. So what happened was that the cops had seized the knife with which he had severed the head. So that was the only weapon they could connect to the body. And bloodstains. They thought they were bloodstains, they collected the bloodstains. So it went on, the charge sheet was filed, I couldn't get bail. So this poor man, the driver, he came to me in Worli and on a rainy day and he said, sir, आपसे बात करना है. क्या हुआ? आपको पैसा देना है. So till then I had not told him any fees, nothing. I said, Khan Saab ने भेजा है, तो I look after. He look after. So this driver says that, sir, आप सिर्फ बड़े बड़े आदमियों को छुड़ाते हो. संजय जब छूट गया, ये आदमी छूट गया, वो आदमी छूट गया, हम तो गरीब है, हमारा केस आप चला ही नहीं अभी तक. I said, see, there's a procedure in criminal law that in a murder case till the charge sheet is filed, I don't know what is in the papers, so I can't defend you. So he said, नहीं आप पैसा ले लो, 5,000 ले लो. मैंने बोला कहाँ से लाए? He said, हम अपने झोपड़ा बेच गया. I felt very bad and I returned the money and called his entire family and told them, make sure that this bugger doesn't come and meet me again. And I got him bail because what this family had surrendered to the cops was a knife which normally he used for his mutton and all that. So he had cut a goat, so he had given that blood-stained one. The blood lying there was of the goat. What they had actually done was they had severed the head of this boy in some other hut. With he was a bread supply. Bread. I don't know if you guys know that in all these cooperative societies, you have this bread and anda being sold on a cycle by the power. So he had used that knife. So they are the sharpest knives. He had used that to cut sever his head so clinically and done away with it. So ultimately the cops in the court could not prove that it was a human blood, it was of the goat. And the knife was containing goat blood. That's how he was out. But then he told me, sir, aapko salam karta hu, because when I got him released on bail, 20, 30 Muslim women and family members started falling at my feet. Because I never charged them a penny. And they knew that they were guilty. And he still got out. So I don't feel bad if I do such cases. But I really feel bad when people use money power to corrupt the system. And a lot of powerful people come to me. They think that they can buy any person in life.
I think this debate,
Even in this Riya Chakravarti's case, when you ask me about pressure, Riya Chakravarti came to me through some source. There was no question. He was dead by the way.
dead by
No, like his family.
No. If I give you the source, you'll be shocked.
Oh.
It could be on a BJP man. So she came to me and my junior went to see her in the house. There was no furniture, there was no nothing to talk about. There was no fancy. There were just 4 or 5 chairs in the house and the family belonged to a retired army officer's family. And so there's no standard which you could say that she's a film star and made money. And there was no question of money being taken away from Sushant Singh Rajput. But she was a lady of self-respect. So the family came to me. The father was with a tattered shirt and I didn't know how to charge them any fees, but that's a different matter. But when she came to me, the entire country was against her and me because I took up the case because Sushant Singh was so popular in the country and she had no connection. So much so that even in my own house, my wife was against me. If the story came on the TV, she's a murderer, why are you taking up a case? Or if I went to my mother-in-law's house, she would also have seen the TV. Arey khuni hai. So, but my children, my son and daughter practiced with me. They knew what was happening. And I told them that don't bother about all this. If the entire country is against me, my wife, if she has seen it on the TV or people, there are like so many people in the building also who were against the fact that I even took up the case. So I have withered these storms and sometimes I turn a deaf ear to all these. And somehow it has helped me. And maintaining your coolness, maintaining your coolness is very important.
I committed to you to let you go by 8:30, but we'll take 5 minutes.
I have one question.
Sure,
There are these others.
I'm going to take all the questions and give it to him so that he can answer them together. Very briefly, very crisp
Yeah,
question.
sure. So firstly, great, reminiscing 40 years
Yeah,
ago.
but anyway, question.
Question. Satish, one of the toughest things all over the universe is administering justice. So the question is, is there any systemic intervention to ensure that? A and B, have you seen in your life when administrative justice is not done, there's a poetic justice which happens?
Good.
You deal with police all the time, and how do you,
You deal
find
with?
police
Yeah.
all the time? And how do you find the quality of the Indian police service? Vis-a-vis when you see that they rush to take.
See, to answer your question, the story I gave, with one tailor's mark, they could trace the body where it belonged to from a Dharavi hut. So,
At the same
and then
time,
now coming to you,
at the same time they rush
Just
to
one
Veera
second, sir.
Chakravarti.
There is a question from there. Manish Bhai.
Yeah, I don't ask any question. सिर्फ मुझे दो शब्द उनके लिए बोलना है.
बोलिए.
आपने खुद ने कबूल कर दिया अभी कि मुझे बहुत लोग एरोगेंट हिंदी में बोलते
आपसे भी किया होगा यार.
नहीं, मैंने नहीं किया. वही एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए मैं बोलना चाहता हूँ. मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है सतीश जी का जो एरोगेंट खड़ूस जो भी बोला जाता है वो गलत है. जिस तरह से मैंने इनको देखा है, मैं यहाँ 10 साल से रह रहा हूँ. मेरी वाइफ की पार्टी में आए थे मेरे फ्रेंड्स जो इनको खड़ूस समझ रहे थे, वो उनको मिलने के बाद, उनसे बात करने के बाद, 2 पैक पीने के बाद वो जो खिल जाते हैं वो अप्रिशिएट आदमी लोग नहीं करते. लेकिन मैं अप्रिशिएट करता हूँ कि दिस गाय इज अ वेरी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग गाय. इनसे मिलो, बात करो तो कुछ नॉलेज मिलता है. कुछ आज देखो, आज हम सब इतने जमा हुए हैं तो वी आर ऑल सब लोग यही चाहते हैं कि इस तरह से सतीश भाई रहे. और ये बहुत बढ़िया चीज आपने की है. I
hear this a lot of time. That people say, अरे सर, जब तक आपका मुलाकात नहीं होता है, आप बहुत खड़ूस लगते हो. मैं बोला हाँ, that is my nature. I said, why should I interact with anybody whom I don't know? And ultimately, if I have to say something, if it hurts you, it doesn't bother me because मैं दिल से बोलता हूँ. तो इसीलिए जेठालानी साहब ने भी एक बार वो बोला था. तो कोई एक सिंधी लेडी थी, बहुत नाराज थी मेरे से. तो उस जेठालानी साहब ने उसको सिंधी में समझाया और बोला कि ये हीरा है, थोड़ा स्क्रैच करके देखो, बहुत अच्छा लड़का है. तो आज तुम you go and sit with him and he'll be very nice to you probably. And coming to Pramod's
There's one more question.
one.
Yeah.
Before I forget,
Okay.
I was dealing with Datta Samant's murder case. And I defended those guys till the end. And in that there were 3 or 4 guys who were the real assailants, and 3 were arrested. The story of the prosecution was they stopped the car, they rained bullets from all sides, and the guy who was shooting from the front, they broke the glass because it was a bulletproof car, shot him from the front, came on the side to make sure he's dead. Came on the other side, shot him dead. So somehow they tried to make a story. So they could not prove a case. The cops, they caught the right people, but they could not prove the case against one of them who had actually shot. And because they had seized only two guns, and the third gun could not be traced to his bullets, which are supposed to come from there. So there's a judge called Tahlani, Justice Tahlani, who conducted Kasab's case, one of the best judges in the country. So he was holding the trial. This was in '96. So he told me, Satish, he knew me well because he knew my in-laws from Yavatmal. So he used to talk to me very informally. He said, Satish, look at this. I'm almost letting off your client because cops have not been able to prove his case. But today I received a message from the jail that is suffering from AIDS. So this was poetic justice. And there are many cases like this which have happened in my life. You have to take it as it comes.
And any way to improve administration of justice?
That the Chief Justice of India will tell you. Anything else, sir?
Yeah.
Very
I was
quickly.
supposed to go at 8:30, but I'll
Very,
extend it to
very
9 o'clock.
Very brief.
There's corruption, political interference with the police, with the judiciary. What is your reading? Is it getting worse or is it
See, I'll
improving?
tell you, any client that comes to you, he wants results as of yesterday. So he's ready to spend any amount of money. Suppose a guy's son is inside, rightly, wrongly, or whatever. But he can't he can't fathom the fact that with all the money power that he had, with all the political power that he has, his son is suffering and in jail, in Alta jail. So he's going to use all methods. Any rich man who comes to you, he thinks that he can buy the judiciary, he can buy the prosecution. So such lines, we tell them, please go, we are not the people who can help you. Because we too want to practice a clean life. I have a team of 8 to 10 lawyers working with me. Predominantly, most of them are girls, 80% girls and 2 boys, my son and 1 more. And they all are very clear that we don't want to make extra money. All of us have shelter, all of us have facilities in life, but we do not want to do anything wrong which will affect us later on in life. Similarly, even in my own family, all of us, my father only taught me one thing, that whoever makes enough in life. My mother always told me that since I was born, and my 5th day, according to the Hindu calendar, fell on Janmashtami. She said, you will be a lucky son and you will be a provider. So, whatever I can provide, I do. If I can't provide, I say sorry. But even my father told me that whatever you have in life, you must share. That's how we live. If you leave that, we are a content family. Like I told you, my ambition in life, in college, was a scooter, Vespa scooter, which cost me 8,000 to 9,000 rupees that time, and a 2-room house, which could have been made in 10,000 to 20,000 rupees that time. That was my ambition in life. So if God has given me so much, why should I indulge in anything wrong that,
I
you
think
can't digest that food.
I think that's a great note to close. If you're working to a higher order purpose and manage to detach yourself from the lower grade trappings, then you can lead a sincere life. This debate on church versus state, legal versus moral, I don't think we can resolve it. That would again continue. Before we close, just want to say on behalf of the organizing committee, reiterate our gratitude to Pankaj Bhai. Courtesy Pankaj Bhai, we have this hall for free, the coffee tea service for free. And the condo is a partner to the event. Yeah, and with my colleagues in the core group, Neil, Nikhil, Harish Bhai and I, we're planning a few things over the next few months. One of them is in the audience as a speaker. Once we firmed up the dates, like we're doing now, we'll send it out through Adda and WhatsApp. We've done 3 episodes thus far. You can write to any of us, any feedback, any suggestions, anything that you think we can do better. Please let us know. We will much welcome it, and that will help us in packaging this better for you. Thank you so much for your patience. But before that, let me have a